Diary of Fülig Jimmy, Part 3.
I still haven't told you what made me start writing this diary. It wasn't even my idea. It happened just before the Honolulu Star docked. I had no clue about keeping a diary. I was getting ready to disembark and was feeling quite emotional, saying goodbye to the steward down in the bilge. I told him with all due sentiment since we'd been through rough times together. It's a pity we're parting ways now, and I'm really sorry that I'll have to smash your face in if you don't pay me the stoker's wage. He kindly asked me not to do that. Then pay me, I said. I earned it fair and square up to Singapore. Which was true. He hesitated at first, but in the end, he realized that if I kept hitting him, he might fall ill. So he paid me the full amount, and we even shook hands warmly. Pleasure meeting you, I said. I'll never forget you. Nor I you, he replied, and I actually believed him. Then I pulled one last little trick on someone who truly deserved it. None other than Dirty Fred the captain. A dreadful creature, that one. Before we docked, I went down to the bilge. "Captain," I said, knocking on the crate he was hiding in. "Just wanted to say goodbye." "Go to hell," he said evasively. "Not before we resolve one last gentlemanly matter," I said. I tipped the crate onto its back and plopped a massive suitcase on top. Now the front panel was facing the floor, and the entrance, his stage door, was covered by the suitcase, which must have weighed 80 kilos. "You rascal," he yelled. "If you do this, I'll kill you." So I added another heavy suitcase on top. And then, nobody had ever heard Dirty Fred beg before. But now he said, "Jimmy," he pleaded, "I'm 52 years old, and for the first time in my life, I actually have somewhere to be." "How touching!" His voice trembled with emotion. "If you take off this cargo, I'll make you rich. I absolutely have to get off this ship." Nobody had ever heard him beg like this before, but I wasn't moved. The man robbed me blind. That sort of thing doesn't exactly win you sympathy. By the time he was still whining, I'd piled so much luggage on top that I could barely hear him. Just a faint, ghostly voice. "Jimmy, think this through, my son." "All right," I yelled. "If I change my mind, I'll come back and unload the pile, but I wouldn't bet on it." "Let the old man squat there until the dock workers come in the morning, and even then they'll unload the crates in the middle first, so the captain might be there all afternoon. Serves him right. Because he's a cold-hearted mutt. If he were in my shoes, he'd probably kill me without blinking. That's the logic. If he were me and I were him, then I'd be killing myself in his place as him. A sharp reader will understand this with a bit of thought. I was reflecting on this very logic while the boat took me ashore, surrounded by grieving relatives, led by the Hidalgo who now wore a long black hat over his bald head. But what if this Egmont fellow sees me and realizes I'm not the king? He knows the real king personally and won't be fooled by my manner. I was getting nervous. They'd ask where the king is. I couldn't account for Mr. Gould either. The man the king said was once a prince, now lost to fate. They'll search for him too. And it'll be quite the scandal when I say he's dead. Twice over. First time I threw him overboard. Second time Dirty Fred did. I'll never forget that night. The ghostly captain and Mr. Gould Fernandez, the former regret prince, falling on my neck after being thrown into the sea. Brrr. I shuddered. "Your Majesty is cold," said the fireman, "but we're still on open water. It'll be even colder soon." "I'm just cold in advance," I replied. And it was true. We had arrived. A grand ship, though smaller than the Honolulu Star. On its side was written, Elmira. Trumpets blared, sailors lined up on deck. From below, I could see among them a man in a fancy military coat with gold trim, Sir Egmont, sword at his side, with an old scar across his forehead. We climbed up the ladder, the funeral procession marching past the sailors. I led them. Then we reached the ship's captain and Sir Egmont. I knew this was it. He'd recognize me and shout. They'd slap cuffs on me right away. I stepped forward boldly. Time to be honest. "Sir," I began, I'll be truthful. This isn't my fault. But then, a miracle. With joy on his face, he said, Your Majesty, I am overjoyed to see you again after half a year. Then he threw his arms around me, kissed and hugged me. I stood there like someone struck with a rubber truncheon from a clear sky. He knows the real king. Then why is he hugging me and calling me Your Majesty? It's not your fault, Your Majesty, he continued, as if reading my mind. The plans changed while you were en route. We'll explain later. We're heading straight to Elmira so you can reclaim the family throne among your people. He said something like that, and the Hidegla was suddenly very bald again, holding his hat respectfully beside him. Come, Your Majesty, to your cabin. You must want to rest. I did want to rest. My head was spinning. And this was only the beginning of the nonsense. Never stayed in such a fine cabin before, and never eaten this well either. 'Cause I'd just been fed when a sailor brought some fine food. Puffed up pastries, poultry meats, jams, and wine. When I asked for rum, they brought that too. And seeing they brought anything I asked for, I requested cigarettes and a bit of cash. That too, they brought. Then a sailor came and said that Sir Egmont and General Polino were waiting in the next cabin and requested an audience. All right, I said, but they better talk loud enough. I'll hear them just fine from here. But that wasn't what they meant. They wanted to come in and be audienced properly. No problem, I said, by the grace of fate, and in they came. The fireman-looking minister and Sir Egmont with his sword scar. Your Majesty, said Sir Egmont, we're here to give our report. Now then, I said, let's skip the money stuff. I trust you fellas. The fireman type blinked a bit at this, but Egmont just said, our proposal isn't financial. That reminded me of His Majesty's advice. Well then, this is one of those current affairs. Best wait a day or two, I said, lifting to my eyes the stemmed spectacles dangling from my breast pocket on a genuine nickel chain. The fireman minister looked at me with such reverence his mouth dropped open. But not Sir Egmont, whose constitution was more resistant to noble nonsense. Even so, I beg your Majesty to hear us now. It's urgent. So be it, I said. I shall be gracious by the will of destiny. While you were on the way, he began, we received word that Warren's Bob, son of the pirate, has escaped from Batavia, where the courts had sentenced him to forced labor. This Warren's Bob, the one with the claim to the throne? Yes, he was in Batavia's prison, but he escaped. That's not easy. There's a guard every 10 steps. Maximum security. Your Majesty surely knows that Warren's father fought against Alvarez, and your father defeated them both. Indeed, that's common practice in our family, I said. Before his sentencing, Warren's Bob swore that if he ever escaped, he'd kill both the ruler of the island and the exiled President Alvarez. People swear all sorts of things at trial, I said indulgently. Warren's Bob is the cleverest and most dangerous criminal in the archipelago. Bah, a trifle, I scoffed. What does that make Moonlight Charlie? That made him cough. Many natives support Warren's. They admired the old pirate. He's likely already returned to the island. Your Majesty must return so the people don't think you're a coward, and so you can stand at their head in these troubled times. And you think, Sir Egmont, my mother's brother, that this Warren's Bob will try to kill me? He'll certainly attempt it. Well then, I'll just knock him on the head, I replied, ending the audience. So now what? I'm not scared of that scoundrel, but the real trouble is that the king missed his connection to the throne back in Singapore. By now, the ship was long gone out to open sea. I went for a walk. Beautiful night, starry sky, calm sea, like a mirror. Gentle breeze and pleasantness. Especially 'cause I'd just eaten, which I count among the beauties of nature. The shore was long out of sight, just sea and sky. And as the damp season approached, a great fog rolled in, swallowing the ship. It was a fine vessel, powerful and fast. Then I noticed an officer behind me, giving me the respectful, silent escort. You standing there for me? I asked. Yes, Your Majesty, he said. Well, Maybe don't, I said royally. With respect, Your Majesty, I am your aide de wing. Even so, I like to reminisce alone. That's what's at play here. I'm under orders, but the responsibility. There's no need for responsibility here. Remove yourself at once, I commanded with royal fury. He left. I felt better instantly once the aide de wing flew away. He went over to a young sailor, probably a wing page, and sent him off somewhere. Surely to fetch Sir Egmont. I got worried. And with the fog so thick you couldn't see your own nose, I skedaddled. That's the best time for prowling the deck. The fog reminded me of that ghastly night when the muscled-up Mr. Gould, formerly known as Prince Fernandez, landed on my neck after I tossed him in the sea, dead. And then Dirty Fred tossed him in again, all wrapped in white. I'd seen him do it. That night was terrifying. We were sailing through fog then, too. I'd seen the ghost in the captain's shape. He came in two forms, and I saw him again. Right here, in this place. The captain's ghost. The fog lay across my face like a steaming wet rag. Everything dripped. No rain, just thick boiling mist across the endless ocean. And then, as I turned a corner by one of the cabins, I bumped right into him. The ghost! Face to face. The captain of the Honolulu Star. Well now, Jose, he said calmly, smoking. I was frozen solid, like struck by lightning. A ghost, surely. What's he doing here, the Honolulu captain? What are you doing? I asked, a bit nervously, because I was, in fact, nervous. This kind of muggy monsoon lull fog messes with your nerves. I'm heading to Elmira too, Jose. Don't call me Jose. I'm here deceiving an entire royal entourage. They think I'm the king. Oh, I won't interfere, but tell me, there was a small drawer cabinet in Mr. Gould's cabin. Any idea where it might be? That's what's on his mind now? Captain, I do not tamper with interior furnishings, I replied with kingly decorum. That's not what I meant. Just thought you might have seen it. Never mind. Good night, Captain. Good night, Your Majesty, he said with a smile, shaking my hand. You're a real trooper. Care for a cigarette? Thank you, but I've got royal business to attend to. He moved on, swallowed by the swirling gray. And just then, returning, I bumped into Sir Egmont again, with the wing aide. Your Majesty. I was worried to see you walking alone. I don't like doing it any other way. Still, even a king must be cautious on his own ship. Paid assassins can be anywhere. I'll just knock them on the head too, but maybe you could tell me why the captain of the Honolulu Star is traveling with us? I have no knowledge of that, he replied. Well, that's just great. But I just spoke to him, not a minute ago, right here. That's impossible. Only your entourage and the crew are on board. And he looked at me like I was out of my mind. I didn't argue. I'd heard this story one too many times to bother. So, ghost. A captain-looking ghost who boarded the ship. Please, Your Majesty, remain in your cabin or have the aide accompany you. Fine, I said. Then I went back to my cabin. But later, in the dead of night, I slipped out quietly. The wingman wasn't nearby, though I spotted him about 10 paces off, leaning on the railing. What does he know? He doesn't realize a true monarch is about, one who learned silent footsteps back in his air days. The door didn't even creak. I was soon far away, only a sailor here and there, barely visible in the fog. Then, long silence. Just droplets plopping off the railings. The captain-shaped ghost wasn't there. Must be something criminal lurking behind all this. A ghost? Well, I'll knock him on the head. If he takes it well, then he's a real ghost. But I doubt that. Still, my chest felt heavy, like the fog had weight, even though I know fog is made of air, and my head throbbed. Typical monsoon symptoms. Even the quiet murmur of the sea sounded odd. My hand was wet like I hadn't dried it. Cold, too. Even though the thermometer said 42 degrees in the shade, and my stomach was freezing. And this fog wall just got heavier and heavier as we sailed deeper in. Bad weather setting in. Everyone gets quarrelsome in the taverns at times like this. That kind of weather where, back in my air days, you'd end up pulling knives quickly. So much so, I unbuttoned my collar, but I was still soaked, salty, and sticky, and my throat pulsed like a ticking watch hand. There. That glint in the fog, it's the gleam off a visor. Time for the flashlight, kept it since the coronation. I gave chase. As I neared, I clicked the button. Light cut through the fog, and I saw him. It was him, the captain, smiling, waving, hurrying off. But I followed. He must be stopped. He reached the cabin corridor before me and vanished into the fog. But then I heard a creak. Door hinge. Nearby. He went into a cabin. But which one? I'll search every cabin if I must, but I'll face this ghost. First cabin window. Dark. Is this it? I turn the handle and step in. Dark inside too. But not just dark. Still. Through my left eye, the monsoon sends a sharp needle into my brain. The darkness and silence were so strange my tongue dried out and my throat thickened. I was scared. My heart went cold. My knees buckled. What is this? I hit the button, flashlight on again, and I think I went mad. If I'd had a voice, I'd have screamed, but I didn't. I slammed the door and ran, trembling like in a malaria fit. I ran and I shook, because the flashlight showed the cabin. And there on the table, in an open coffin, lay Mr. Gould. Yellow-skinned, straw-colored mustache, black eye sockets. Fernandez, the recent Regent Prince. The one we'd already tossed into the sea, twice.
To be continued.